Hey, and welcome to another episode of Served, a special recap edition. In real time, I just finished watching the phenomenal final with Carlos Alcaraz beating Sasha Zverev in 5 sets. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this Alcaraz kid's going to have quite the career in tennis. Coming up right now, we have my good friend Kim Clijsters. Then later in the show, Jon Wertheim is going to drop some knowledge on us. Any fan who consumes media has to check out Jon Wertheim's 50 parting thoughts from every Grand Slam, the ins and outs. So we'll get the full 2-week macro view with Jon Wertheim coming up. Always has some interesting points. But since it's finals weekend, let's bring in someone who has played in finals and been a champion on many of these weekends. Friend of the show and friend of mine, Kim Clijsters is with us. How's it going, Kim? Where are you?
Thanks for having me again. I am in a meeting room in a hotel in Antwerp. Was in Paris for a few days and going to visit my family and my friends and have a wedding for my cousin's getting married. So good time to be back.
I was about to say, I thought you were already married.
Yes, a long time ago.
Not your wedding, apparently.
No.
Talk to me a little bit. Let's get right into Roland Garros, and let's start with Iga Swiatek and kind of what we're seeing. And she is quickly going from, wins her first tournament ever in the 2020 edition of Roland Garros, and it's one of those kind of Guga Kuerten moments where someone breaks through on such a grand stage, is going, okay, is this someone who is going to be a top 10 player, like a let's say like an Ostapenko when she broke through, or is she going to be a top 5? And now the conversation is she going to be one of the best players of all time? You know, you're looking at where she stands with career slams now at 5, tied with Sharapova, passing great champions like Lindsay Davenport, like yourself, kind of on the way to the history books now with her 4th Roland Garros title, tying your countrywoman, Justine Henin. But just give me your quick thoughts on her dominance and what you see. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anything that can stop her, especially on this surface right now.
No, I also think her mindset is definitely one of where she wants to be one of the greatest, players out there, and she wants to win every Grand Slam she plays, and she thinks she can. I think grass is going to be her toughest surface because of her little bit more of an extreme grip. But just her, like a few years ago, I think I met her for the first time at Wimbledon and had a chance to chat with her. And she has such an open mind to learn. Like, she wants to improve. She talks to everybody, right? Like past players, past champions, doesn't matter, like generations, like from way before, previous from the last one. And she is such an observer. Like, she wants to learn, and she's improving all the time. And so her mindset is that she, wants to be one of the great ones. And I think everybody kind of penciled her in to win the tournament before the draw was even made. And I think that little second round there, the big matchup against Osaka, was to me one of the best matches of the tournament. So she came close to losing that one, which is, for Osaka, a great kind of the first kind of big moment for her since she came back from having her daughter, and where she could test herself a little bit, and so it was good to see that matchup. And but yeah, Iga is very impressive, and she reminds me a lot of Justine as well when she's playing. Like, she has that determination, maybe not her playing style or her technique, but there's that determination, the way she walks out there, maybe the hat, like that whole kind of vibe. It makes, it feels like Justine out there.
Well, their Roland Garros records certainly match up together now. And let's get back to I want to kind of take a glimpse forward for Osaka here in a second. But I'm glad you kind of mentioned the student side of Iga, because I remember before last year, so she had already had success, already won Roland Garros a couple times. And when she first won Roland Garros, it was largely by virtue of movement, a big spin mechanism on the forehand side. But it wasn't like this smothering aggression that we're seeing now, right? Where she steps, just kind of sets herself up 2 feet inside the court on second serves and then doesn't let anyone up for air. It just feels like you're smothered, and she is inside the court. It's not a, traditional clay court specialist where they need space and they kind of drop back. Even Carlos Alcaraz in the final was 4 feet further back than he normally is, which is, maybe just in front of where Rafa's been for the last 20 years. But someone asked her about it and she said, oh, well, I just know to play well more consistently. Like, she wasn't happy with just being a slam winner. To be dominant, I have to be aggressive. And it's like, man, from where I sit, I'm going, okay, that's a really nice thing to be able to do, to just decide that you're going to be aggressive and have it work pretty quickly. But kind of explain to everyone, as you're going through the process and as you went through your career, you were someone who obviously had a ton of success from a very young age, right? You kind of went on to tour and there wasn't much of an adjustment period. You were, pretty good right away. But what have you seen as far as Iga goes with the adjustments? How is her game better now than it was 3 years ago when she was already, a two-time Grand Slam champion?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it all. I think just watching her play live even is so impressive, the way that she just stands, if not on top of the baseline, like inside the court, right? With the backhand too. Like, she hits those backhand returns where she, likes to go for the down the line, surprise the opponent. Like, she takes the balls so early now, which is something that I hadn't maybe not noticed as much in the past, especially here on this surface. So definitely put a lot of work in. Like, she's always been a good mover, but now she's kind of not giving her opponents the time to kind of work their way into the point, right? To try and be dominant first. And she's the one that's really trying to take on their opponents early on. And that's a big change, I think, that she's made. And I'm sure it's taken some time to kind of get used to that, but it's, I think, especially with, unless you have a game like, let's say, a Sabalenka or Rybakina, where you can kind of hit like through her with a lot of power, no Osaka. I think she's going to, have a fairly easy. She has no weakness. Like, her matches are all pretty, straightforward. Nobody really troubles her. So it's unless you can like kind of hit her off the court, I think, she's not going to have any problems with anybody, really.
Yeah, I think there are similarities to Rafa in that regard, where you didn't see Rafa lose a lot of matches when someone didn't have something to kind of take control to make him react to, right? Like, I would play him on hard and I knew I could come in on a first serve, or at least it wouldn't work all the time. And, I was kind of 50-50 on hard courts, but at least I had something that he couldn't control, right?
And you throw their rhythm off too, right?
Totally.
Like like that's that routine and trying to stay in charge of the points. And it's such a mental thing too, right? For her to step inside of the baseline for the return, it starts with the mindset. Like, it starts with your mind to try and be, aggressive and attack as soon as you can. And but yeah, it's you did it. I mean, of course, it's if you can have a big serve, you need the big weapons now, to beat players like that.
The other thing that is non-negotiable as I'm watching tennis these days, and I was someone who was kind of a clunky foot mover. Like, I was physical and I was big and I would kind of hustle my way, but I wasn't like a fluent mover. You were obviously a great mover and kind of invented this split situation that we see every player capable of doing now. But two things that I see as an adjustment, and it's weird, and I have so much admiration for it, and you mentioned it, is that two things that Iga's doing even better, and I don't know if they work in lockstep. I suspect they might. A couple years ago, she would kind of drift and try to get those forehands and really kind of try to control it. Now she's taking the backhand straight on and able to create an angle cross court even when she's pretty much middle, right? So it's kind of similar to Andre later in his career, where he would set up shop and he would take the ball on whatever side it came and distribute. But what it's done is it's taken away the ability to expose Iga line even more, right? If she's not giving up the space and then she hits one a little spinny and then someone takes her line, she used to kind of have to recover from that. She's shrinking the court even more by virtue of her backhand getting better. And she's able to create, like, I've watched her a million times in this tournament where someone would hit it basically straight onto the backhand. It's hard to create angles when you're not presented with an angle, generally, for kind of those tennis fans out there. She's taking it maybe a foot left of the hash mark, and the next ball that her opponent is hitting is outside of the sideline, right? Her ability to shrink the court that way. And also when she moving is, she's not like, I don't think she would win a sprinting contest against everyone on tour, but I think the way that she is kind of efficient with her movement, she is sliding, she is hitting, and then at the end of the slide, she's already a foot back towards the center, right? And it's all done in this one fluid motion, which makes me want to vomit with jealousy. Like, it just is it's just this insane thing. And also, I'm not going to deal from a place of being hyperbolic. I think she has some of the best footwork from the middle of the court I've ever seen in my
Her
life.
footwork is incredible. Hearing it on the
talk
clay
about that.
too, like hearing it live was so impressive. Like you can hear, when you're playing on a hard court, you can hear the squeaking, right, of like Alcaraz at the US Open. Like it's super impressive to hear him like run around the forehand and then run to the drop shot and run back and stop and slide at times. But Iga on clay, it's like, yeah, it's like all the little small steps, and then you hear the power when she pushes off. Like it was really, really impressive to see and watch. And what I also think is makes it really hard for the opponents against her is that her grip and her technique is a little bit more like unconventional and hard to read. She has, her backhand is harder to read. Like I just find it like she's just able to change directions like without, with a lot of players, how you can anticipate kind of, like that's going to go cross court or this one. Like with her, it's so hard to read, whether it is the more extreme grip with the forehand or the backhand that's a little bit closer to her body. Like it's a tough technique to read.
Is that especially on clay, just because she has enough time to kind of like, I always say the great ones, they're able to like kind of hold you in position. They can almost wait like a quarter of a second longer to where you're stuck, and then all of a sudden they've got you to where you're in a neutral position, and then they can kind of distribute either way.
Yeah, because our sport, like a lot of times, like I feel like with me too, like there's a lot of anticipation, right? And kind of patterns that your opponents kind of, that you can read after a while. And I feel like with her, it's on clay, it's the directions that she is able to even last second, like hit that backhand, return down the line, or like a short cross court one. It's the variety, like there's so much variety that gives, she doesn't give her opponents any rhythm either. So, really impressive, like the way that she's grown and as a player. She hasn't changed much technique wise, but just tactically, like she's really adjusted her game tremendously.
Yeah, and she, I mean, the way that she's taken like bits and pieces from, it feels like different players, right? I mentioned the Andre comparison. The way she kind of sits on second serves now, and just, I feel like her opponents are just picking that first ball up off their feet from the middle of the court. Like she has that Novak thing where Novak's the master of putting a second serve on your shoe tops, right? To where you don't have an angle, you have to play back up to him, and then all of a sudden he can distribute the way that he wants. The movement, kind of that kind of circle C movement where you're kind of moving around that half court from the middle of the court, looks a lot like someone like a Rafa. You mentioned the intensity of Justine Henin. It's just fun to see when someone has success and they get to kind of the pinnacle of being a Grand Slam champion, being number one in the world, and then it's like, okay, that just means I need to find other ways to improve, right? And I just give her so much credit for that. That
we're
mindset.
seeing,
it's not easy.
we're seeing the result, right, of that open mindset of like work starting years ago, right, where she absorbs from everybody when she talks to whoever it is. Like male, female, everybody. She talks to everybody and learns from the mental side of the sport, the tactical side of it, everything. And there's, it too, like there's so many players are so stuck in their normal routines, and like changes scare them. Like they don't want to have an open mind to like, try to take on a new coach who says this, or try to like, no, let's just stick to the same kind of practice patterns all the time and same routines. And, but with Iga, it's trial and error. And you always take some good things in your backpack and you use it on the court, and I mean, that's how you improve all the time.
I would imagine those trials are easier to jump into when they normally work out for you. Like you just decide you're going to be aggressive and win more.
Listen, I tried to have an hour hit on the red clay. I was kind of inspired. I haven't played on red clay in like forever. So I was like, okay, let's, it's nice out here in Belgium today. So we kind of booked a court in like a local club here in Antwerp. And my first 10 minutes on clay, they were horrendous. I couldn't move. I was sliding everywhere. And then it kind of like felt like, okay, this is getting better. But it was, it's very, very tough.
I love that. I love that you're telling that story, because inevitably, anytime there's like you watch a great match. I remember like watching Alcaraz Djokovic last year, and then you're driving around town like an hour later, and every public court is full. Right, like everyone's like, "Oh, I want to go play. This is so cool." And I just imagine Kim doing the same thing.
We did it before the match, but no. But I was at the French Open and I saw like the perfect clay courts. I was like, "Oh man, it would be nice to play some dingles or something, like on these
Dude,
courts.
I'm telling you, I'm waiting. I got a Dingles game ready for.
By the
I'm
way,
in.
do you have Belgian beers like cans sitting behind you, or what is that there? I
Oh
can't
gosh, well, you know what?
see
I'm
it there.
glad you asked. This is actually an Olipop, Kim. I don't know if you've had them before.
Oh yeah,
It's prebiotics, the low
Jada.
sugar, the whole
My daughter
situation.
likes those. Yeah,
Your
she
daughter
drinks them.
likes them.
She
Great.
does. Yeah,
Wow,
she. I
you're like
think
a
we get them at Costco. I think we buy the.
they're
Yeah,
available in most places.
yeah.
You're like a sponsor's dream right now, Kim. Fantastic. Way to go with that one. Little bonus coverage for Olipop. Okay, so all praise to Iga. That's it. Let's talk about a couple of other names, and I specifically want to get your opinion on the golf Swiatek situation. I went on about at length in our last show just about how I feel like I'm watching it and can relate because I spent the better part of a decade not losing to a lot of people except for Roger. And I felt like I was obsessed with that matchup and trying to figure it out, and often at the expense of the rest of my game. So I want to kind of ask you about that, but let's just talk quickly about Paolini and Dreva and anyone else that stood out to you this tournament. I didn't see Paolini making this final coming in. She didn't have great results on clay, which was surprising because she had played so well early in the year, winning a Masters 1000 in Dubai, getting to a career high ranking. What impressed you about her? And then also in Dreva, and what do you see for her going forward?
I met Paolini a few years ago. I think it was about 3 years ago. And to me, her energy, like she's like Alcaraz in a sense where she loves being out there. Like she plays, she's smiling, she's working hard, she's in the gym, she's having fun. And, almost feel like that kind of mindset will eventually get you to, I don't know if it's to have a little bit of luck with the draw, have, like grow as an athlete. So I feel like the energy that she brought out there, she has gotten more and more confidence. Obviously, winning in Dubai was huge for her, but she's, very short player, like not the most powerful one, but her energy is something that was really stood out for me. Like she walks around like very like almost like remember Sibulkova back in the day,
Yeah,
like
on her toes,
like
kind of
yeah, on
like
her
jumping
ties,
around.
walking like high energy, and a lot of players are yeah I don't know, they feel that on the other side of the net at times too, and it like kind of like pushes their energy down a little bit, I feel like, or and so that's something that I really like noticed, and even at the French, like okay, the final wasn't a close match, but she like was just enjoying every second that she was out there and smiling and laughing to her team and during the games, and it's something Alcaraz has too, like it's enjoying their moment that they're out there. And I mean, Andreeva is fun to watch. To me, I'm telling you, like the best tennis that I saw was maybe unexpected, but coming from Naomi Osaka's racket. Just being able to, shows really good tennis on clay, which, I think she's been pretty open about that not being her favorite surface, but really, really good tennis. And she's playing in Rosmalen this week, playing against Elise Mertens tomorrow. So another kind of tough first round for both. So yeah, just interesting to see how she'll be preparing for the grass courts.
It's interesting because, I mean, you said it. It's not like we have low expectations for her on clay because it's your least favorite surface and she's coming back. She wasn't great on clay when she was the best player in the world.
No, like and she expressed it too, right? That she didn't like the surface and the movement. I had decent results on clay, but I was not like, I didn't feel my best. Like it wasn't the way that I like to play. It wasn't my natural kind of movement. And so, yeah, I remember back in the day thinking like, oh, Maria won the French Open. Like she's not a natural clay courter, right? She's not so you can learn from those kind of situations and players, and Ostapenko and the harder hitters these days. Like we've seen the players complain about today too. Like Alcaraz was complaining about, the courts feeling like a hard court. Like it was, it's definitely the courts are not as heavy as they used to be, I think, when we used to play back in the day.
Yeah, and I always explain it. I think, and I'm curious to hear your take on this, and if it's just me trying to find an excuse for my lack of relevance at Roland Garros, but I felt like the clay there is finer. It's kind of softer. Like when you rub most clay, it feels like salt. When you rub Roland Garros, it feels like baking powder a little bit.
Yeah, like a powder. Yeah.
I feel like it exposes not fluent movers more than any other tournament. Like, you can made the semis of Rome a couple times, like, oh, this is it, I can play, like, let's make a run. Then you get there, and I feel like I was just kind of slip sliding everywhere. I think it was especially prominent during this Roland Garros because of the rain and having to water it a certain way when you go indoors. And then all of a sudden it got really sunny and there wasn't really like much back and forth. It was like rain, 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 sunshine, which I think, to give at least a little bit of a break to the grounds crew, which is the best on earth. It's not as if they don't know how to prepare a court at Roland Garros. I think that switch, along with having to prepare a court for indoor play versus all outdoors, I think that actually makes a massive difference. As we talk about Osaka moving forward, when I saw her in Indian Wells, Miami, and it's not as if she made final or had some massive run, but just the way that the ball was coming off the racket, she was making more errors than she did in her prime, but her winners were again kind of turning people into mannequins, right? She used to have this ability where when she would kind of get on her front foot and really take control of a rally, people wouldn't move. They would get winners hit, and it was like they were standing still. And I saw that in play a little bit in Miami and Indian Wells again. And I went on TC Live and said, I think she wins a major again. And she hasn't won 3 matches in a row, but I just, with the way that with the amount that she's playing, if she gets the reps in, I love how much she's committing to her schedule. She's playing more than she ever has. Like, it's crazy. But am I nuts for thinking that she could be on the short list of favorites already for when the hardcourt season comes around?
No, I agree, especially after that last match against Iga. I feel like that's where I was like, okay, this is the best that I've seen her play. I was in the stands when she lost to Elise Mertens from Belgium in Indian Wells. There was a lot of unforced errors. They were mostly still kind of on the wider side of the court, right? The movement, being able to come back. Like, there was a little late at times, but when she was behind the ball, it was so good. There was, the serve at times was incredible. So yeah, and at the French, I feel like she was really, she had, okay, in a situation she had nothing to lose. Iga's the big favorite, so she was yeah, just going for it. But I do think that she, even on Wimbledon, I think like she can, with that serve and with that first kind of, the first 2 shots of the rally are going to be so important there. And she's so good at that, right? The return, the serve is very good. So yeah, I'm interested to see how she went to train in Mallorca to, on the grass courts, like to prepare. So she was there already, like since she lost, and at the French. So definitely committed, focused to try to get that slam. And I think, why not Wimbledon? Like, I think she can definitely has the weapons, and if she's fit enough, which she is, like after coming back from having a baby, it takes time to get your body back and to get physically strong enough to recover from matches, to have a few matches in a row. And she she's definitely close to her best again.
We still have to, one of the things that the only pushback I would have is we still haven't seen her play like 5 matches in a row, right? She looked amazing in the second round at Roland Garros, but she didn't have that logjam of matches. And you, obviously better than anyone else here, knows what it's like to come back, especially, after kind of giving birth and being a mother. So I think that's something to look out for. Is we're talking about winning slams, but that's 7 matches. We haven't seen her get through 4 yet, right? But I do feel like the build is in place, and if nothing else, she showed us that top level tennis is still in there somewhere, right? Like, she still possesses the Osaka that we remember, where she can just be dominant and kind of take the racket out of someone's hands.
Do you watch soccer?
What you mean, football or soccer?
Soccer. The real football. I'm sorry.
So there's an American audience there, Kim.
But, sorry.
Not
listen,
not to the point of where I feel confident saying yes, and then have you ask me something obscure about soccer.
So we had the Champions League finals was recently, right?
Yep.
So a friend of mine is the goalie of Real Madrid, Thibaut Courtois. Kind of, we've known each other since we're little. He had a huge knee injury. Surgeries, like, took him a while, like came back, had to have another surgery. And then he ended up, like, he didn't play the whole season, ended up playing the Champions League final and played incredible. Right. So we were like kind of at times like texting, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to see like how I feel, like, when I get back out there. And I'm like, you'll be fine. Like, your brain, you'll remember it like this. And I feel like that's the same with Osaka. Like, yes, it's taken her a little bit of time, but it's also like physically, when you have when you have had to put the time in, the habits and the routines, like she hasn't been away from the game long enough to say like, oh yeah, this is going to take a long time for her to recover. Like I feel like those habits and the mindset of like, I remember when she like played incredible against Kvitova in the Australian Open final, like to step it up in those moments, like when you're down in the third and come back, like that's there. And I feel like, it could be one set, one match that will just ignite that. And then she will be on that roll of like, okay, let's go. And so I feel like, yeah, I think at our age, muscle memory is not maybe that's
it's more like at our age, it's like more like muscle forfeiture. One thing I want while I have you, this dynamic between Coco and Iga, where it's like Coco is 2 in the world right now. First time she's gotten to 2 in the world. Obviously is a Grand Slam champion. Obviously one of the best and most consistent performers week in and week out. She has so many great things about her game. I think she's and I say this in the most flattering way possible, so digest it that way. But when she is off, I think she is one of the best problem solvers, having less than her best that's out there. She can double fault 15 times and still get through matches. Her forehand can be shaky. She still gets through matches. But this matchup against Iga, we're lying if we say that she's closer now than she was 2 years ago. And I harp on matchups on this podcast where it's like someone's playing well, this person's playing well, and they're like, well, Coco's look great I'm like, the matchup. If they're both playing fine, the matchup dictates everything. And I say that from the viewpoint of knowing what a terrible matchup looks like. I was 3-21 against Roger and pretty close to neutral against everyone else at worst. Was there someone that you struggled with just purely on balls and strikes, and then it eventually balls and strikes becomes kind of a mental issue? And what would you do? How do you analyze this Coco Iga matchup?
For me, it was Justine for the longest time. I feel like I think I lost 4 Grand Slam finals before I won my first one, and 3 of those were against Justine. And I feel like knowing now that I'm a little bit older, and like I already lost those matches before I even started them, because I didn't believe that I didn't fully believe. There was always that if I play great, and I knew that I had to play great, and then
hope
she had
belief.
Hope that I would play great, and that her level would maybe drop at times. But once you start thinking about those things, it's finished. But yeah, it's definitely become there's nothing more frustrating stepping out onto the court against a player that you've lost to so many times, and after a while there's you feel kind of hopeless, right? Like what is there that I can do? And so Coco has definitely developed a lot. Like she's improved, but Iga has improved so much as well. Whereas I think Iga just does not have a weakness, and she doesn't give you any point. If she gives you a point, it's like 15-all. Like she doesn't give you easy mistakes. It's mentally she's just so strong out there, and keeps her bad moments like really short. Whereas a lot of other players like a Sabalenka or Rybakina, even Coco at times, like when they're off, like it can be for a little bit of a longer time. Whereas Iga keeps that amount of time really short, and it'll be tough. I mean, there's only so much you can do, right, to try and change or adjust your game a little bit to try and beat an opponent. But it's a tough one, and an interesting one that we'll always be watching, right? Like how can she do it maybe on the grass court? Is there a different technique? Maybe more serve and volley or whatever. Like
I mean, any surface that is quicker to where Coco's backhand can get through the court, and maybe she can become first serve dominant. I think the only way around this matchup consistently, and I've seen with my own eyes in practice, Coco go through a hopper of balls serving 125 consistently, second serves not missing any. I think she has the ability to become a dominant server. I think she struggled at times, and I think it kind of goes in waves, right, where she can be streaky, like in Australia this year, even the tournament before, and then going into Australia, she was hitting 12 aces a match with 2, she was winning 90% of her first serve points, not double faulting. And I think the thing that she has to solve for is obviously traffic going through her forehand side is a problem. People saying she needs to step up and flatten out that forehand. That's just not her shot shape. Like she
No,
doesn't
she
have
has such a big swing too. Like it's a
I
yeah
hate the solutions that aren't based in the reality of someone's
on
game.
her game. Yeah, yeah. You
Like
can say like, oh, step in and like lean forward. That's not her.
I,
You know, her heavy forehand is great. Like it's
I
on
mean,
the clay court, it causes a lot of trouble. Like
yeah, I used to like pull. I used to go crazy. People like step inside the court and draw. I'm like, do you know how badly I hit the ball? Like I can't step on like a foot inside the court and take backhands and drive. Like my body doesn't actually work that way. My grip, like I'm not going to change a grip when I'm 26. So the solutions that I hear analysts and people coming up with for this scenario, where it's like she needs to step in and flatten out her forehand up the line. I'm like, I don't think that's like telling Iga to serve and volley. Like I don't think that's a realistic.
no, but I
don't
see
think that's
from
a
the
realistic
point of
fix.
like what could damage Iga a little bit more is like if you can attack her forehand, like not just like once, twice, but do it like keep going like 3-4 times like in a row, like to really try and put a lot of pressure on that side. Because I do feel at times and on the faster surfaces, that's the shot that a lot of times does break down. And so yeah, like if you look at it just from that side, like well, what would be a good tactic for Coco? I do think it's attacking the forehand and like really like almost like with a lot of stubbornness, right? Like I'm just going to keep going and I'm going to try to break it down and I'm going to try to kind of make her doubt that shot. And because it's happened. I mean, it's happened.
Surfaces matter too. Like
Yeah.
it's on clay, it's a different, like you're saying, it's tough to run traffic through Iga's forehand side on clay, whereas it's gettable on grass, on a fast hard court. You see her take kind of more random losses in like a round of 16 or quarters. So it is a little bit different. I understand Coco going after it more on something that's giving her a little bit of help. But honestly, I don't
serve
think
it's going to be
it has to. I think she can. I think
like,
she can be a dominant server. I think her top line serving is fantastic. It's just creating the continuity in those feels and the ability to kind of let it go and let it rip on the serve.
So what is it in your opinion that like with her serve maybe at times being like it's definitely improved a lot, but like at times still being inconsistent? Like what is it like what is it that creates that? Is it
I think it's purely toss based, and we worked 2 days only, so there's no how much can you get done in 2 days, but it's toss based, right? Like basically if you have a serve and you're reaching for it, like you're reaching forward for it, you can't create a spin mechanism that gives you consistent margin. You just can't. And I feel like I especially like American-centric coaches, they're like, get forward on everything, hit forward, take it early. Like I don't know that it's always that way, but a serve has to be somewhat above your head because you have to be able to hit the bottom of the ball and create that spin mechanism. With Coco, her right foot comes over to the side, so she's already tweaked a little bit forward, right? So you're already kind of leaning. And then on the second serve, it's all just margin. The toss has to come back over almost like directly above your head, as opposed if you're reaching forward for a second serve, it's going to be inconsistent. Right, Zverev used to do it, and he's fixed it. He's fixed his toss. He's brought it down almost a foot and a half on average from where it was in 2020. I think that matters. I also think that she's been so good throughout her entire life with being able to retrieve and play great defense, and on her worst days be scrappy, that I think too quickly she gives up on hitting big first serves and goes to like kind of protect the double fault and kind of protect the first serve. And I think she's going to have to go through the tough moments of like, okay, I had a bad serving day, but I need to stick with it. Similar to Iga deciding she was going to be more aggressive. She just did it. Like she committed to it and was kind of head down. But I think especially in that matchup, she has to up her risk profile on her serve. She has to be able to get through service games without being challenged consistently on that second serve. She can go big. She maybe take more risks where it's placed in the box, maybe take more risks on a higher MPH into the body. I've seen it with my own eyes to where after 20 minutes of serving, there wasn't a ball in the net. So she can do it. Getting text before Australia from hitting partners saying like she's serving like like one of the top guys out here in practice. Like it's absurd. So it is in there. I just think she has to get used to that more aggressive mindset. I think her default mindset, as it would be for me and everyone else if we could play defense the way that she would, is more of like kind of a defense, react to what's coming at you. And I'd like her to kind of take the ball and kind of control the pitching a little bit more.
I heard that from my coach back in the day too, is like, make sure you finish your service motion. and like hit and already kind of fall back into like, oh, the tough returns coming. Like I got to be ready for that. Like, yeah, it's a good. Well, I'm glad to hear that you can like that you're on the team a little bit and help out.
No, I'm
And
not. I'm not. Like that's the thing that's like
no, maybe not
I'm
like,
not.
but that you're a go-to kind of person. Yeah,
Yeah,
for her to be able to. That's great.
I think I'm just more of an exhaust mechanism, so she doesn't have to take all of Brad's opinions. He can spare some on me instead. But okay, so let's get to the guys quickly before we let you go. As we're talking, it's probably 45 minutes from when the men's final finished. We walked straight into studio. Alcaraz. So here's kind of what I'm going to tell everyone when I'm wrong. Post Big Three, sitting there in 2021, it kind of looks like Roger's hurt. Rafa, I think, lasted longer than any of us maybe thought he would when we saw him, the way he played at 21 years old. Novak obviously still looked dominant, but there was this wonder of, I'm in Arthur Ashe Stadium, night session. Are we going to have the stars in the vacuum post Serena, post Roger, post Rafa, so on and so forth, post Venus, that can fill this stadium with the brand of tennis and with the star power? And I honestly feared and would have bet significant money that there was going to be a little bit of a lull in the interest of tennis, in the product that was being put out there, I thought it was going to take more years to kind of have to build and market superstars. And was I ever completely wrong? I mean, this kid steps in. He's my favorite player to watch. He can hit every shot, and it's like he's this mix of kind of perfect because he can hit every shot and play a certain way and move a certain way, but also vulnerable because you don't feel like he 3 Grand Slam wins later has full. I don't know how you can harness all of the options that he has at a given moment. So it does lead to the sense of vulnerability at times also. What's your take on Carlos and I don't know, the way he's just kind of taken the world by storm and kind of post Big Three?
Yeah, and also the way he's doing it, right? It's like with an enjoyment. It's still, you see the kid in him. Like it's with a lot of excitement and at times too, like you can see the nerve still, creeping in there and the doubt at times, but he's so fun to watch. And at the US Open last year too, like, when you're talking to people kind of in the stadium and stuff, like I would always say, like at times just close your eyes and just listen for a second. Like that's something that I love to do. Like, I did it with Rafa back in the day. Like it's so interesting to just listen to a player's movement, like, and especially when they're not, about to hit the ball, like what they're doing in between and how. So that's the same with him. And I love, yeah, he's surrounded by good people. He has a good team. I mean, Juan Carlos Ferrero, what he's done with this kid from such a young age. Like there's so many,
as you're saying it.
So many coaches, they hop from one player to the other, and then, yeah, they have great results. Well, great job. But this is like a great story of like a past player who's done well and, yeah, took a young kid under his wing and really developed him to, a Grand Slam champion, multiple Grand Slams, and who knows where it's going to end. So if he can stay healthy, and we've seen him, I saw Juan Carlos Ferrer in the semifinal against Sinner, like a lot of time, like he was doing this, like calm down, like don't get too much adrenaline, like up from what happened last year where he was having almost like full body cramps against Novak. So I think it's a lot of that, right? Like learning to deal with the adrenaline now. It's keeping his emotions under control, like and because he's so explosive and feisty and like in a positive way. So it's it's also like he's learning so much and he is absorbing things and he's getting better all the time. So again, like I think what you mentioned about Rafa, when he was younger, is a little bit not a concern, but like there's so many more physical, I say like there's so much more focus on recovery than when we were younger, right? Like there's so much more people, like the details are so much more important. And so if he can stay healthy, I mean, we saw the elbow injury, but if he can stay healthy, it's going to be really, really impressive to, I think the most important thing for him is going to be able to kind of schedule his season out really well and,
totally.
and make,
if anything, I've the last couple of years, I've seen him go and play on the heels of massive wins, go and play like smaller events. And I'm going, so I think but I was someone who had to feel good and have matches going into slams. Otherwise, I just felt like I dealt from a place of insecurity. I obviously didn't have the skill set of Alcaraz, but I think this tournament specifically, for the point you're making, is like, I was undercooked coming in, didn't play much on clay. And now there's like that, and I think Rafa needs matches also. I think he operates that same way. But Fed and Novak specifically, and Serena, God, Serena's probably the biggest master of this, is like, I'm undercooked and I can still go in and win a Grand Slam. And until this one, I think this is going to do wonders for the ability to schedule confidently, like you're saying, and maybe protect the body with scheduling while also not worrying about kind of having those feels going into a Grand Slam. And I'm really happy that you brought up Ferrero, because as you were talking, I writing here, I'm like, okay, so the coaching part, and you mentioned people working with different players. Most of like the quote unquote celebrity coaches are brought on. Like, I brought on Jimmy Connors when I was already an established player, to play in multiple Grand Slam finals, I think 3 or 4 at that point. And I needed someone who just understood those moments. And, you know, a lot of the coaches I had, I loved to death, but I could look at them and say, I feel this, like, let's talk, let's get through it. And it was,
they don't understand. No,
it was something they had to, you kind of have to experience to understand sometimes, not for everyone.
So that came from you? Like you getting Jimmy on board with, like, that's something that came from inside of you, or you had people around you that were like, oh,
no, I made that. Well, I say early on, it was probably like all of us, right? We're 18, 19, where it's probably dictated. It's more of like a democracy of opinion. Whereas, you know, when you get to 25, 26, 24, 25, 26, and you've been on tour for 6, 7 years, I think it becomes a little bit more of a decision-making dictatorship, especially when it comes to coaches. I had gone through two people. Jim Courier turned me down, and then I was like, I wonder what Connors is doing. Like, he wasn't even around tennis, but I just needed someone. I think the American thing and the expectation, but all that being said, we've seen coaches come in where it's like, you know, Edberg with Roger, or Ljubicic with Roger, or Becker with Novak, and I'm going, you know, yes, I get that, because they need someone who is, you know, at least close to their level to like actually feel like they're having a conversation. And also, in the prime of those guys' career, I think my cat could have coached them pretty well. Like, I just, you know, it was already established. So Ferrero too often gets lumped into this celebrity coaching thing. Right now, as I stand, I don't think I could see a 14-year-old on earth where I would give up my life as it currently stands to go work with a 14-year-old to develop them into a champion. That is not the same as someone coming in with a 21, 22-year-old who's already kind of established, or
won slams, or
he has developed a Grand Slam champion as a celebrity coach. That is extremely different. And there's stuff I don't know. Like, there's the technical part, which he's never not prepared. Like, his technique is phenomenal, and he's developing a slice that looked a little weird 2 years ago. And you kind of can see that that's a continuation. The strategic part of it, how to deliver a strategic message, and also how to articulate that message. Connors could tell me something that was the exact same as someone else, you know, who wasn't Connors, but he would say it with an intensity, and he would say it in a way that I immediately understood, right? Like, I'm like, I understand what you're saying. What he's done to kind of develop the technical part at a young age, to develop the relationship part of, there's no breakage. They don't yell at each other during matches. Like, there's no,
it could just be like a look, right? Or like a little, like, yeah.
So all of these things are not something that I don't think, I think I can know what's happening. I can tell you what I think is happening, but then to go, I'm having insecurity whenever I talk to anyone. I'm like, am I giving too much information? When do I pull back? When do I keep going? To have kind of mastered all of those things, you know, and also teach someone to play completely different than you did, I think takes a certain amount of like a lack of ego. And I don't think Ferrero, as much credit as he gets for the job he's done, I still don't think it's enough.
No, I agree. And what I loved today, like after the final, like when he ran into the stands to see his team, Juan Carlos Ferrer, his coach that he had on tour, was there too, and like hugging. So there's I'm sure he's getting mentored by him too, right? And he's learning from his coach, and it's generations that have gone through, to where he is right now as a coach. And I agree, like to be able to have a coach or that knows what it's like my biggest frustrations with my coaches in the past was where I'm explaining to them that I'm really not feeling my forehand. They're saying, yeah, but it looks fine from the stands. Like, like I can't imagine, like, I'm like, dude, like, all right, whatever. Like, you don't get it. Like, there's those, like, and it's, players understand that, like, that you can look okay, but struggle.
Conversely, when I haven't missed a forehand in 2 weeks, don't talk to me about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just leave it alone.
Leave it be. Like
I had a rule with my serve. Like, talk to me about everything. Don't talk to me about anything technical ever on a serve, because that's the only shot I actually know inside out and know how to fix on a pretty consistent.
It's unbelievable. Like,
basis.
I've worked with like a little bit with some players here and there, like nothing like official, but like how many times like I've worked with a player that wants to change something about their technique every time they lose a match.
Ugh.
And I'm like, how can you become a confident player? Like, if that's your goal, like, it's just so, yeah.
I just can't wait to see more of this. And also this rivalry with Sinner. It's like, it's such a gift. Like, just a quick thought on him, obviously getting to number one on come Monday. We do need to talk about, he will be number one in the world. I think the 28th, man on the WTA tour, man on the ATP tour, to get that ranking. What did you feel like the first time that you got that ranking, and was it tough to kind of wrestle with the next time you walked out on court?
I almost felt like not worthy. I feel like my first time, because I had never, like, I hadn't won a Grand Slam, and like in the media too, like the press conference, that's all they were asking. Like, do you feel like you're worthy of like being number one? Because, especially Serena at the time, like she wasn't playing much, but when she played like the big tournament, she would almost win everything, right? So like, I agreed, like she was definitely the better player the year that I became number one, but okay, like I played more and I was more consistent in those tournaments. But it is, so that does, some of the comments from the media do get into your head. So it became a motivation to really like try to like get it done, right? Like to get that first Grand Slam under my belt. And so I think for Sinner, like to be able to, he's won the slam. Like I think as a kid, winning a Grand Slam and becoming number one is like what you kind of dream for and hope for. And then when he's able to kind of check those boxes already is cool. And then you kind of just keep pushing the bar and keep pushing it forward. But he's so fun to watch, grown. I was doing commentary in Paris, and it's funny like how the guys were still talking about how, he needs to physically get stronger and he's too skinny. And but I'm like, listen, he's improved and developed so much that, he's so fun to watch. And
it's also like it's just a different body type than it was. We all like to kind of project forward from what it was when we first got on tour and make that like the baseline now. Like, what's too skinny? Is Medvedev too skinny?
Yeah,
is Zverev too skinny? Is Sinner too skinny? If you can move and create speed, I don't care what you look like. Like, I have
friends like that come to like the tournaments and they talk about like, oh, I didn't know Federer was like skinny. I didn't know Novak was skinny. Like I don't think they like when they watch it on TV and they're big tennis fans, but then when they see them in real life, that's what they talk about. They don't say that about me, but it's but no, but it's like, there's a different build. You do feel like the physical kind of description of players have definitely changed, and then probably a little bit more on the men's side than on the women's side.
Yeah, and props to Zverev, obviously coming in with the whole hype mechanism around Nadal, dealing with a million off-court issues and the ability to compartmentalize, and we won't get on our high horses about that. I'm sure Jon Wertheim will have an opinion one way or the other later on in the show, but to come in as a favorite in a Grand Slam and deliver, being one set away. You said you lost your first handful of major finals before you broke through. Talk about the mental hurdle that Zverev is kind of feeling going through, where he's basically accomplished kind of everything in tennis as far as outside of majors. 1 year in championships has won, I think, 6 Masters 1000. Twitter fingers, stay away from me if he's won 7. I get it. But just kind of talk about your process and where is he, and is there extra scar tissue considering the way he lost in 2020, where it was on his racket a little bit, and having a lead now in this one also up 2 sets. Where does he stand on Monday looking back? Is it pride in what you put out there? Is it desperation to get over the hump, or is it some mixture of both?
I would think desperation is probably the feeling that is number one at the moment. Frustration is yeah. I mean, it's the only thing, like I've talked to Simona Halep in the past, like I was close to Darren, like in going through moments like Ons Jabeur as well. Like it's you feel like you create a bigger you put focus on winning that Grand Slam becomes so much that becomes so much more important than anything else, really. Like at times you like don't even think about like, oh, how can I improve my game? Like it's just basically that focus on like I need to win that Grand Slam. And so I think for him too, like even like in that fifth set, like just like his facial expression changed. There was like panic at times, or like like what can I do? Like this is gonna happen again. Like you can almost read it off his like face. And it's unfortunate, but from me, like how I kind of took it, like I was probably not a pleasant person to be around for the first 2-3 days after I would lose those matches. And what I hated the most was the fact that I never was able to play my best tennis in those finals that I lost to Justine, right? Like there's a different feeling if you like feel like, okay, I like went all out, I played great, like it was a great final. But I just felt like, I was always like just more tense and tight and more in my head. And so my kind of thought process that I tried to really tell myself over and over again was, okay, like put yourself in that position. It's not something you can train in practice, right? Like Zverev can't say, oh, let me go and try to relive that moment in practice. Like it's not something you can do, like that you can train for. So you have to, give yourself, like be patient and keep putting in the work and give yourself those moments again where you can, play the quarters, semifinals against these players, finals, and really, confidence is what you need in those moments. And you can only create it on, at the big stage in those big matches.
It's a tough spot to be in when it's win or bust, right? So it's like I got to a point in my career at Wimbledon where you lose a final. It's basically like it's either euphoria and it's going to happen and it's going to feel like your tennis heart is complete, right? Or it's like a complete failure. And I was the opposite of you, whereas I would play the Slam finals and I didn't feel like I didn't play well. Like I never played kind of subpar in a Slam final. You're better than I am, but I didn't feel like it was the moment that got to me. It was the fact that I just couldn't get over the hump, like of kind of a talent divider ability. And it's just, for me, I have a little bit of sympathy for where he's going to go, because it's basically going to turn into this conversation where he can make the finals of a Slam. What an accomplishment that is. Like to go through 2 weeks of your life, 25 hours on court, and it's going to get digested the same by people who don't know and don't understand, the same as if he lost third round. And I hate that for him. I think it sucks. Credit to him for kind of getting through and keep putting himself in that position. Certainly not easy, but I also think it only gets tougher the longer it kind of sits out there.
There was a camera angle at one point where you could see him look at his box, but at the same time, like in the president's box, you saw the trophy, and I think it was like 4-2 in the fifth, and it's like, oh, like like you could see that he was feeling like he felt that it was slipping away. And it's really tough, and like it gets to me. Like I was sitting here with my friend, like watching it on the screen, and we were both like, oh, like this is terrible. Like but it's part of the sport, and you can only hope that he, it makes him even more hungry to work, to keep working hard. It's not that he doesn't work hard, to keep that up and give himself another opportunity, right? To do it again, and then try to change some little things here and there. But it is definitely a great effort. Like, people around me would always say that, but there's so much kind of black and white thinking too. Like, oh, I lost. Like, who cares? Like, if it was even the trophy, like the runner-up trophy, I was like, oh man.
There's no other sport, by the way, that you have to stay out there. Like, imagine an NBA finals, like you having to stay out there where the other team celebrates. We're the only dumb sport that does that. Like you can leave, like another sport, you can leave and then, you have to do press and you're disappointed, but you don't have to stay out there in the worst moments of your professional. Oh my God.
give a
The
speech.
biggest
and
achievement of my entire life or my entire career, I think, is speaking after Grand Slam losses when all you want to do is curl up in a ball and suck your thumb for about a month. But anyways, I think it's just not that we needed another proof point of tennis being in an amazing spot. I think from a crossover mainstream pop culture perspective with, getting everyone has a documentary on some sort of major streaming platform. I think interest level, ticket sales, you can't get tickets for the US Open right now. And it's however many weeks away. You email Wimbledon and it's just like the demand to consume tennis in person on TV, in moments where there's not live content, I think is at an all-time high. And it's not something I saw coming. I'm thankful to the athleticism, the athletes that are out there. Our podcast is in great shape because Kim Clijsters comes on every once in a while.
It's all you. No.
The wins keep on coming.
You have no idea how many people, I'm telling you, how many people like talk to me about it, like random, and are like, I didn't know Andy was like this, and you guys are great. I'm like, okay, thanks. Like it's like it's crazy. Yeah, it's really cool. So I'm happy you guys are. Well, you're great. You do a great job. So
I think you were one of the first people who said yes to coming on and exploring the way we do things here, without asking questions. You said yes, and then I think it started a little bit of a downhill snowball. We are thankful and we're appreciative every time you choose to join us. I look forward to the next one, and enjoy some home cooking in Belgium. And enjoy your family, enjoy the wedding. Yeah. Tell your cousin we said happy marriage, or condolences, depending on how it goes. I don't know.
I'm actually going to be a granddaughter. Like I'm going to stay with my grandma for a few nights. Like it's like like she's going to cook for me and all that stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I love it. We'll appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. Let us know when you get back stateside.
I will. And
we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Kimmy.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Always a pleasure having friend of the show, Kim Clijsters, on. I find myself going into like fan mode and asking questions to her. I've lived experience, but I like hearing the different takes on them and the different takes on the players and the scar tissues and what might be going through and the mental gymnastics. It makes me feel like I'm a little less crazy sometimes when there's a similar view. But fresh, still in Paris, says he talked to Carlos Alcaraz like 15 minutes ago when he was doing his victory lap, third major. Roland Garros has won US Open, Wimbledon. Roland Garros, youngest player to ever win on 3 different surfaces in a Grand Slam, from that fancy hotel room in Paris. Jon Wertheim, how you doing? It's been a long 2 weeks for you.
Good 2 weeks though. No complaints. Yeah. Doing well. Good to see you. Yeah, I wish you wouldn't know it from my surroundings, but I'm about 15 minutes off the court from Roland Garros. So another major in the books, and Carlos reigned supreme. That was quite a match today.
Talk to me. We're on our group text, and Jon obviously has a day job, kind of calling the shots and doing the desk work and then doing the post-match interviews, which I think are awesome. I think you do a great job with that. But you had the benefit of being in the stadium, right? So there's only so much atmosphere that we can digest while watching on TV. You sent a text saying like this match, it's a little weird. I think Zverev was up 2-1 at that point, and there were a lot of ebbs and flows. It looked like the wind was a significant factor, at least from one side. It seemed like the strategies were changing every time they switched ends. What was it like in the arena today? Kind of start, middle, and then obviously the home stretch.
Yeah, this was a weird one. These are knowledgeable tennis fans, so you've got a little bit of the see and be seen crowd, but I think everyone they came in, they remembered what happened to Carlos last year when great 5 rounds, great first couple hours against Novak, and then the cramps. They knew about the controversy we don't have to get into now, but they know about the context of Zverev and the complications with him making the final. They were still recovering, I think, a little bit from Rafa, from Novak. It's been a bit of a weird tournament. And then you have this final, and on the one hand, it's great entertainment. There's some shot making. It's very hard to sink your teeth into this match, right? I mean, Carlos, there were something, I think there were 18 breaks overall. Carlos won the first set, looks good. Then, here comes Zverev, takes the second set. Carlos is up 5-2 in the third. Okay, it looks like we're going to have a 4-set match. And then he disappears. Zverev steals that third set. and then Carlos wins the fourth 6-1. So it was very hard, just as the players had a hard time finding rhythm. So did the fans. It, as you say, it was a little bit windy. It was patchy. We had a line call dispute. In the end, great value, good entertainment. It was box office. Carlos wins in 5 sets. We get our storyline. Nadal may have played for the last time, but the new Spaniard comes. And not only that, the guy who beat Nadal in round 1 is the final opponent on the final Sunday. It was a weird 4 hours, though, in between. And, sometimes you get absolute classics. Sometimes you have yesterday, just 2 players on different planes. Today was a weird one, but I don't think anyone's asking for a refund. And I think ultimately tennis has its new champion. Tennis has its new steward. We're all going to be fine. Carlos, I'll tell you about that interview. He comes in a Michael Jordan t-shirt. His English is, I said, as much as his tennis has improved, his English has improved just as much. And the guy wants to talk about Michael Jordan. Every question, so he sort of went back to Michael Jordan and the words of wisdom. And have I seen The Last Dance? And he's better. You never got to see him play, but he watches YouTube. Little weird that you win a major and you walk off the court after a 5-set win, and the Bulls of the 1990s are what you want to talk about. But no, good way to wrap this tournament. Bit of a weird tournament, bit of a weird day, but that's how it goes sometimes. And another major in the books.
Yeah, it just feels like start to finish, this tournament was dealing with elements, right? And I say this, we talked about, I went on a quick reaction show, like basically walk into the studio 5 minutes after it finishes and basically just read my notes from the entire match out loud on air, which is either annoying to whoever's listening or hopefully informative on some way, shape, or form. It's kind of getting into the nerd version of tennis, but going from basically an indoor tournament for week 1 to a sunny outdoor tournament and trying to maintain a similar playing condition, similar style, challenges all around, right? Adjustments in this final. I went down the rabbit hole of the way Carlos started, the adjustments that were made by Zverev, how the wind plays into it. You throw nerves and execution into it. And it's somehow, masterpieces can start out ugly sometimes. And sometimes, Andre Agassi said the smartest thing I've ever heard in this simplistic thing is you only have to beat one person per day as a tennis player. And so it doesn't have to be a classic, but Carlos, we were questioning his problem solving earlier this year, right? Does he need Ferrero there? This was a pretty good example of being spotty. First set was one of the best I've seen him play. It was just start to finish, a shellacking. I mean, the ball flight on his backhand side, the variety he was showing. Zverev didn't know what was coming, didn't know where it was going to be hit, didn't know what ball flight was coming through, figured it out, started pounding forehand, attacking the strength, which is something you never hear junior coaches talk about. And then Carlos just kind of stuck it out, kind of choked away, frankly, the third set, and then recovered. And here we are talking about center for the last 6 months. Carlos winning a slam, 3rd year in a row, 3rd different slam, and being a good citizen along the way. I admitted, basically I was pessimistic about where tennis was going to lay post Big Three, Serena, Venus at the top of her game, and I couldn't be happier to be wrong about it. I think the game's in great hands.
Totally agree. I mean, I think that's one thing that came through. And as much as we will mourn and miss the Big Three and Serena, they're still going to play these events. They're still going to hand out trophies. Players still are going to develop. We don't have to get into it now, but I would say right now as a group, you've got a lot of players who are well worth rooting for. There are a lot of sort of very, very worthy stars. I mean, it's not, Coco, Iga, you've got sort of different personalities. You can go down the list, and it's young and it's old. And I think, I think at some level, and I include yourself in this, I think the last generation set the tone, right? I mean, I think sort of yourself, Roger, Rafa, Novak, I think sort of the Andy Murray, the sportsman of the last generation. I think there's some trickle down effect on that. I think the sport's going to do just fine. And yeah, I mean, it's fluid. This is why we love sports. Plots change, people change. A year ago, and you were totally honest. A year ago, Carlos made a bit of a mess of his match against Novak, and there was cramping. We talked about his hydration, his maturity, how he was processing. He was at one point sort of conceding games in hopes the cramps would go away. It was a little sloppy. A year later, completely buttoned up. He didn't panic. He needed treatment, but he knew exactly what he was doing. There were he said there were nerves, but he kept them under wraps. You wouldn't have known it. He as you say, he's pretty much gagged away that third set, and then he reset and only lost one game in the fourth. So I think we're seeing a maturing player as well. We're going to be fine here, folks. And that was sort of one of my takeaways. It's crazy tennis. You said it. It's rain delays. It's controversies about crowds. We can talk about there was a bad call in the fifth set, which I think stained this match a little bit. I don't know if you want to take the baton there, but I think bottom line is they're going to play these events. Inside tennis, we quibble about little things. The average fan that went there had a great time today. They'll come back next year. They'll give her out a trophy next year. We're going to be okay. This movie continues.
Yeah, and one of the things, and you mentioned Alcaraz learning from last year, as I'm watching it, and he knows what he's asking for now, right? Like his body, he can feel it. Listen, you're never fresher at hour 4, even if you're in great shape. You're never fresher at hour 4 than you are in hour 2. It just doesn't work that way. Even him knowing the cadence of when to ask for this pickle juice, when to ask for treatment, what to ask for when he's getting treatment, those are all learned behaviors that don't exist in practice. I've said it before in this podcast, never once in my life did I cramp in practice, and I would practice for 6 hours. And early on in my career, nerves involved, different conditions, yada, 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 I would cramp. You learn how to fix. What you want from a young player is not to make the same mistake again. And it seems like with his team, and obviously we can't say enough great things about Juan Carlos and the job he's done, taking not just a formed player, but a junior, 14, 15-year-old, and forming him into the champion that we've seen. Just give me, and obviously we want to talk about the Alcaraz Zverev match because it's top of mind and it was dramatic, right? It was interesting watching the commentary. Alcaraz rolls the first set. It's like 1-1 in the second set. And McEnroe and Carrillo go, well, this is the amount of time that Iga was on court yesterday, and the match was over. So let's give attention and respect to dominance, even though it was straightforward, even though it's not going to be the final that we remember going to a fifth set with all this drama. We still need to pay it the same respect, if not more. Talk about Iga, this tournament, and kind of the progression you've seen over the last 4 years since we've gotten to know her, since she burst onto the scene in winning Roland Garros in that, I think, the October version in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, don't you like this, that we have these sort of different expressions of excellence?
Yes.
I don't want these tours to be mirror images of each other. I love the fact that, we can watch and admire Serena as she rolls over the competition, and then the next day we can admire the latest chapter in a rivalry. I don't mind that these tours and these players are at different places and these finals play out differently. I mean, I think they're both enjoyable in their way, and I think it would be actually really boring if this was just a completely overlapping Venn diagram. Iga's just dominating, especially on this surface. She's lost one match in the last 5 times she's played this. She lost one match. This was her 4th title. That Naomi Osaka match, I mean, it sounds sort of it's a lame Twittery thing to say, but I do feel like Naomi Osaka was a big winner here. If she shouldn't have gotten the runner-up trophy, my producer Michael knows this. There's those UFC bonuses. Naomi Osaka should have gotten some cash bonus for what she did to this tournament. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fight of the night bonus. Dana White comes and gives Naomi Osaka a bag of cash and says, "Don't declare it on your taxes." But no, I think after that scare, Iga, I think we see also what a great player she is mentally. So Naomi Osaka, she's down match point. She figures out a way. She gets herself out of trouble. These powers, these ability to escape. And then for the next 5 rounds, she absolutely rolls. I mean, at one point, she won like 20 straight games. She had 3 love sets in a row. The final could have gotten complicated. You've got this underdog, nothing to lose. The crowd loves her, even physically diminutive. It sort of has every stupid David and Goliath trope. And Iga, in another sort of expression of mental toughness, just said, yeah, not so much. And it's mental toughness to stave off match points and beat great champion Naomi Osaka 7-5 in the 3rd set. It's also mental toughness to come out to a final and say, okay, we're going to make quick business here today. And she lost 2 of the first 3 games. She lost 1 game the rest of the afternoon. And here she is. You look at who has won 5 majors, and she's into Justine Henin territory, 2 away from Venus Williams at her age. And I think we've had this pivot she went from a good player to a great player to a generationally great player. And Chris Evert very graciously said, look, I've got the record. I've won 7 of these. She's going to win more than me. Yeah, I think we're looking at some, whatever. She does not have this particularly by choice. She's not someone who's interested in being a celebrity. She's not someone in having the world know her, and that's fine. She sort of wears the cloak of celebrity. She wears it awkwardly and uncomfortably, and that's fine. She wants to be a really good tennis player. She is, and she's on her path to double-digit majors. Carlos Zverev, completely different vibe, completely different kind of final. Carlos is I think much more extroverted, and that's fine too. So two very different champions. So there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of sort of distinction as well.
Yeah, and just proven champions at this point. Like Iga breaks through, wins her first tournament at Roland Garros. Was like, okay, what is she? Is she Ostapenko or is she Henin? And I got in trouble the other day because I tried to compare the number of slams versus French Open titles. Henin's won 7. Someone on Twitter beat me up about that. So she's creeping up, obviously tied with Sharapova these days. These are all-time greats. She's already an all-time great. Now it's about padding the stats and the resume. And I'll tell you, dominance like that doesn't happen because you find form. And it doesn't happen because you survive a match. It happens because you're committed to random Tuesdays. Right? You're committed to doing the right things when no one's watching. And then by virtue of a lifetime of discipline, a lifetime of grit, a lifetime of work, a lifetime of X, Y, and Z, all of a sudden you go out and you make the second week of Roland Garros look easy. It's not by accident. It doesn't happen by accident. But we've covered the finals. Props to the champions. You were there for 2 weeks. The tournament wasn't played over the last 3 days. Only give us some tidbits. Your kind of 50 parting thoughts in your mailbag is must read for any tennis fan. Can you give us a little sneak peek, a couple of things that you found interesting over the course of the last 2 weeks?
Cut me off when these get boring or weigh in.
Yep.
This was the last year, it seems, for NBC. So we've had a bit, I'm a little bit conflicted here, but the NBA TV negotiations, I think, had big bearings, and NBC doesn't necessarily have the spare cash or else the bandwidth now that it has the NBA. Who didn't get the NBA? Well, it looks like this Discovery Warner Brothers did not get it, and they, you reportedly have now sunk $650 million over 10 years into broadcasting this event. So this was the last year, foreseeably anyway, that NBC, which was here for, since the 70s, last year of NBC TV coverage. What else? There were 20 players fined this tournament, which actually is pretty low for these events. Only 3 of them were women, so make of that what you will. Remember the player who should have been disqualified for this, the French wildcard, who hit the ball into the stands and actually hit someone and mysteriously was not disqualified.
Yeah, see,
last year we had
let me interrupt you. When you leave judgment calls up to umpires and it's the same thing with different results, that's when people get pissed. When Novak hits someone at the US Open and gets defaulted immediately because it's an umpire on the court, like if you accidentally hit a ball and it hits an umpire or the person in the third row, it's the same action. It's an accident. You don't mean to hit someone, but it's the same result. This bullshit thing where like last year someone gets thrown out of the tournament for the exact same thing, and then this year that's what causes confusion, and that's why players get pissed sometimes. Sorry, rant done, go.
No, you're totally right. And this applies beyond tennis. We want consistency. Why did Angel Hernandez get fired? Why do certain legal decisions really stick in our crop? All right. We want consistency. We didn't get it. Very strange that a Japanese doubles player gets dinged for sort of tapping the ball inadvertently.
Last year,
defaulted, shamed last year. Miyu Katu, the doubles player. This year, tennis player from France rifles the ball, hits a spectator, and he got a $25,000 fine. Interestingly, on this fine list, 17 men fined, and 5 of the 17 were Tsitsipas brothers, and all 5 infractions were for coaching. That's a little weird. I wonder if the money goes to charity. It should probably go to therapy sessions too. Buy your units in advance because something ain't right there.
I have a question. I don't understand, like, if we're like, this is another thing where it's like, great, coaching's allowed, but also we're finding people for coaching. Like, it just, like, there's no continuity in the rules. Like, it's either a free for all or it's not. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And also, should we develop like a soccer type thing where if you get the same infraction over and over, it should roll over into the next match? Like if you get coaching violations, should you get a fresh start each time, even if you haven't earned the right for a fresh start based on the infractions being the same over and over?
It's like hotels and Monopoly. It's like speeding tickets. Yeah, it should accelerate. I mean, I think you're allowed to get coached on your side of the court. So I think one can safely assume that Tsitsipas, the father, was shouting across the net. So if they had been, it's exactly.
So wait, I'm allowed to talk to someone when they're next to me, but I can't like shade and put my hand motion out if someone's across the court. Like I get it. Like, can't we just make a rule simple? You can coach, you can't coach. Obviously, if you're talking during someone's serve or if you're talking during whatever, but like it's just like us in tennis to make a rule and then have so many little things in the rule to make it confusing and to where nobody knows what they can and can't do. Like, it's just dumb. And also, it's the job of Father Tsitsipas to know the rules and not get in trouble. Like, God.
I have a question. Why not just let them change boxes then? Just change boxes.
Oh, each time?
Right?
No, you can't walk across.
I mean, come on. Let the coach on the court.
But what you're not,
let the coaches on the court.
No, because you're like type of tennis fan that only watches matches on stadium court where they have boxes. Most of them you're in the stands like everyone else, so you don't get like your
why not just
taken.
Let them down on the court then?
Because your seat will get taken.
A folding chair.
Because your fucking seat will get taken. You got a folding chair on the court. Yeah. What we need is Tsitsipas's father to have more proximity to talk more. That's exactly what we need. What's the next one, John?
Can I just back up? I mean, can we not just say, Dad, I don't know if you knew the rules, but you broke it. I got fined. Could you please not do it? Dad, you did it again. That's twice now. Dad, maybe maybe by the fifth time you're getting an infraction for coaching, you could change your ways. But anyway, let's move on.
The Department of Redundancy Department.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. What else? A lot was made of the night sessions. 11 of them, not a single women's match. I talked to Amelie Mauresmo yesterday, and she was very, I give her credit. She took the question, and she basically said, nothing to do with quality, it's just length. People pay a lot of money. They come from work. We can't start it until whatever the time, 7:30 or 8, whatever it is. And basically, she didn't say this directly, but it was sort of, we can't risk Iga going out there and winning in 41 minutes when people are spending good money for a night session. So, if I'm the WTA, I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play not best of 5. We're going to play 4 out of 7. Now give us all 11 night sessions. But I think it's a fair riddle. I think she basically says, look, nothing against women's tennis, but I can't risk charging for an entire session. What else? There was a lot made of, we can talk about the line calling, because one thing that they did not have this tournament, strangely enough, before we even get to the lines, they didn't have electronics on the net. So here we are. The world is going towards electronic everything. Robots are taking over. NVIDIA's, has the market cap of 10 Amazons, and they've gone kind of analog here. There was not any electronics on the net. That didn't end up being controversial, but it could have. I asked the tournament, and they said, well, it was a tournament decision. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like, of course it was a tournament decision. What informed that decision? I did not get very far on that. And then as you saw, in the 5th set of today's match, and I thought Zverev actually, we can, whatever you think about Zverev, I thought he really high-roaded this. It could have been a lot more embarrassing. Critical call, would have given a break, and we do not have electronics. How did you react when you saw this call being made based on highly fallible human eyesight?
There's a couple of things. We're basically choosing to have to rewind cassette tapes by hand. Like we're literally choosing to rewind VHS like this. Like we have streaming, we can press back, we can start from and we're choosing to do it in the most antiquated fashion available. Whether it's nets, whether it's line calling, like we don't, no one churns butter anymore. Like we don't do that because there's a better alternative and time happens, and players, they don't drink Cokes before they go on court anymore. Like we know that an all spaghetti diet will make you cramp. Like there are things, everything progresses, but yet I will never, and I go off on tangents on this all the time. Whenever someone gives you the reasoning, because that's the way it's always been done, when it comes to progress, inserting new technologies, everything else, it's going to be a failure. It's going to be a failure. It may not show right away, but then you're going to get to the point where in a fifth set, in a major, where someone's trying to win their first Grand Slam, someone double faults up a break. It doesn't get called. They run it back. There's no break. That is potentially career changing. And it's because we want someone to trot down, look around, and also like the part where umpires come in and explain to players ball flight and how it lands as if we haven't seen it every day for 6 hours from the time we're 7 years old. Fuck off. Like we're going to not use exact line calling. We're not going to get it right because we choose not to. And then we're going to have them explain to a player how a ball travels, even though that's the job. It is just like mind blowing. But then we're going to innovate because we're going to put some stupid little camera that looks like a horn on an umpire so that we can look at players, so that we can catch the live reaction of players reacting to our shittiness. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, we're going to bait them. We're going to bait them into bitching about what we're doing. And then we're going to videotape them. Like, really up close and in their face. Like, I don't know. Like,
and it's like a shitty GoPro too. It's like not even.
Oh
good
my God!
technology.
It's like you see like someone arguing, and it's like they're moving like out of the screen, and they're moving. I mean, it's just like, what are we doing? I just can't get over it. It's like this was a choice. Putting this up to translating marks was a choice that I'm sure a lot of people spent a lot of time on. And I haven't heard a good defense of it yet. Saying it was a tournament decision just means it was a bad tournament decision. That's what I'm hearing.
Wait, can we back up what you said? That's like I didn't even think of that. It's absolutely right. We are, just so to be clear about this, the chair umpires here were equipped with this ridiculous camera. It was like they're miners in
like
the coal mine. Yeah, it was
like if my headphone was out here and then it was turned on John right now, and they're like they're taking orders at like Starbucks.
But your point is absolutely right. They used that camera to watch the umpires bend over and look down at a mark with their own naked eye. It's like taking a cab to get to an Uber. I mean, it's just, I hadn't even thought about it.
But also, like, okay, so we have this dumb little, and we spent too much time on this because, whatever, it shows what it is. But we have this dumb little camera, and for those listening on pod, like I'm just holding my hand up like it's a dumb little camera to the side of my face. And then we get to the point where it's a crucial moment in a fifth set of a major on the telecast. We have access to that camera. Zverev is next to you talking about it, like saying, hold on, look at this. And that's the moment we don't use it. What is it for? If you're not going to use it in that moment, what is the dumb little camera for?
I'm thinking every single person watching knew the correct call, except the three people that it impacted the most. The two competitors and the chair umpire. Don't feel free to cut me off there. Lovely moment on Saturday. Martina Navratilova is supposed to hand out the trophy to the winner. And Chris Evert, who was once her fierce rival and now is as close a friend as you can have. Martina woke up and said, you know what? It's been 50 years since Chrissie won here for the first time. Yeah, she gave away the trophy last year, but this is a nice gesture. And we're both here. She's had a bit of a rough year. Why don't we both do it? And, Saturday morning, these two friends made a decision, and Iga Swiatek wins this title. And who goes and gives her the trophy? But both Chris Evert and Martina, because Martina just thought that was the right thing to do. We need more of that. I don't know.
My take on that is like, one, the part of the story that we kind of undersold there was Martina has gone to hell and back with cancer the last, however long, and Chrissie the same over the last couple of years. So there's a shared friendship, there's a shared experience, shared history, and now all of those things, but with a different opponent, right? And so for her to extend this handout to Chrissie in this moment, and also, like, if you're Iga Swiatek and all of a sudden you're accepting this trophy and you see two faces of tennis's Mount Rushmore up there, and you know the weight of those two being together, the significance of tennis history, the significance of the fighting spirit in more ways than one. It means more to Iga. It makes her moment more special, which is kind of the point, right? Like, we want to celebrate the special moments in tennis. I know that you have worked closely with Martina and Chrissie this year on a project, and I don't know how much you can talk about it. If you can't talk about it at all, great. But you have had an inside view of that friendship. I think you're closer to it than most of us, and they just continue to be kind of the standard bearers for we can be enemies on the court, and a relationship can start with respect, then it can get to shared experience, then it can get to friendship, and then it can become what essentially is a sisterhood at this point, this many years later. And I just think it's beautiful, and they continue to drive home the most important points that can be made time after time without missing a note.
That's very well said. I've got to be a little cautious here, but yeah, I mean, I have no objectivity here. I'm completely compromised. It's a lovely relationship. And I think, I think we see this a little with Rafa and Roger as well. I think there's an acknowledgement of not only are we sort of bracketed together for history, not only did we have this rivalry, but, not a lot of people know what it's like to win 18 majors. They have this shared experience. And I think, so one time I said to Martina, like, how do you perceive it? And she says, look, everybody says, oh, if Chrissie wasn't there, you would have won so much more. And she says, not so fast. She pushed me in a way that no one else did. And I am blessed for her presence. All right, maybe I would have had a couple more majors if she hadn't been in the draw. But then again, maybe I never would have gotten this point, because as trite as it sounds, rivalry brings out the best in both parties. And it's really crazy. I mean, here, this was always sort of set up as the ultimate contrast, and it's sort of, Chrissie and soft versus hard, and gay and straight, and east and west, and the baseliner versus the attacker, and lefty righty. And here they are in their 60s, and they are fast friends. And it's not even sort of one of these mutual respect. There, as you said, that's a great word. I mean, there's a real sisterhood here, and it's really, it's really been a pleasure and an honor to see it up close and in person.
Well, I don't know that we're going to get any better than that as a parting thought. Jon, get some rest. Back after the break. Hashtag get served by Andy Roddick. We'll see who this week's lucky selection or unlucky selection is. Back after the break. Thanks, Jon. Welcome back to Served on T2. What a show. I'm humbled weekly by the content brought to us by the likes of Kim Clijsters, the student of the game, Jon Wertheim. I always appreciate their time, never take it for granted. I always learn something talking to both of them. I just think as tennis fans right now, we are spoiled in such a great way. We just witnessed the greatest generations, right? We witnessed Serena Williams march through history. We witnessed Federer, Rafa, Nadal, Novak, Venus, Murray. The list goes on and on and on. Clijsters, Enna, Sharapova, and now we get Iga, already marching through the record books with 5 slams. Carlos Alcaraz, the youngest player of all time to win a slam on 3 different surfaces, and we become victim of the moments and look forward. Can Jannik Sinner overcome a hip injury? Can he get his legs back underneath him? I know the WTA Tour is salivating over the possibility of playing Iga on anything except clay. I don't think they want any more of that problem to solve. So you got to think Coco's looking forward to the grass. Sabalenka, Rybakina, they have to be excited to get off the clay and have to, they get to solve for Iga on a different surface, which is simultaneously her worst surface. Can Novak somehow pull off a miracle and do Novak-type things and get back somehow for Wimbledon? And if not Wimbledon, the Olympics. And if not the Olympics, the U.S. Open. We all, as tennis fans, as I said the other day, we want to see like the longest passing of the torch possible from Novak down to Sinner, Alcaraz, and to a lesser extent, Medvedev. etc. We are just so spoiled with the amount of tennis content out there, the way it's been able to cross over. It has earned its seat at the global mainstream sports table. And I think we're all better for having watched these great champions. And also, I think we get to see one more great champion here, Mike. What do we got? Hashtag Get Served by Roddick, brought to you by Swing Vision. This is the part where you hackers send in your videos, you brave hackers, and we get to break it down courtesy of the technology of Swing Vision. Who do we have today? What are we looking at?
We have friend of the show, Ivan Luce, who sent us a video with the caption, which I guess we're going to see where this is leading, making King Kyrgios proud. Take it, Sean. Hit us with it.
Off to a rocky start. Okay.
Oh.
You know who that was? That was actually making Murphy Jensen proud, because as I do the hot shot on TC Live every time, unnecessary showboating. 15. If you're a coach, you take Ivan out on the next play, even though he was able to pull it off somehow. Completely unnecessary. Looks over like they didn't choreograph the whole thing. Ivan, thank you for watching and listening to Serve. Thank you for participating in Swing Vision. And unnecessary showboating. 15 yards. Listen, this is such a fun segment. I love seeing the submissions that you guys put in, and thanks for putting yourself out there. It's not easy to get critiqued. It's certainly not easy to get critiqued publicly. Ivan, thanks for being a friend of the Served podcast. Mike, you got any other thoughts before we get the hell out of here?
No, I mean, I think send us some other videos that maybe aren't tweeners. We're getting lots of tweeners. Let's get. We only have one more week left.
You know what I feel like? I didn't see it coming. I feel like we're getting a lot of choreographed sequences. That's what I feel like. I feel like people are literally taking the video and creating their own highlight reel. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going to owe Ivan Luce a written apology. But that was pretty nicely in stride by your friend. Best supporting actor situation. I don't know, but fun nonetheless. Great racket skills from Ivan. Thank you for watching on T2. In order to get your submission in for hashtag Get Served by Roddick, producer Mike has some more info. Thanks for watching.
All right, guys, here's a reminder. Scan the QR code here on screen if you're watching, or go to swing.vision/served. The link is also in the bio. Sign up for Swing Vision. Submit your best serve or rally to X or Instagram using the hashtag Get Served by Roddick and tag @SwingVisionApp. We look forward to seeing what you got, all you chuckers out there, as Andy likes to call you. See you next week.